So hello and welcome. This is Adelaide O'Dunton of Healthier Living. Welcome to Season 2 of the Wellness Revolution. Our focus this season is on more paths to healing. In our first season, our experts introduce you to new modalities and approaches in the area of health. And one of our speakers on our last series was David Wolf, who many of you may know. And David, in our conversation, mentioned a book called Earthing. And the things he had to say about it was so exciting that I promptly went after the call and bought the book and read it from cover to cover. And I knew that we needed to have a call with the authors of the book who are on the call today. This is truly one of the most exciting breakthroughs in terms of our health that I've been introduced to, the power and health benefits of being connected to Mother Earth. And so I am delighted to introduce Clint Ober, who first made the discovery of earthing, and Dr. Stephen Sinatra, who provided so much of the scientific insight and support that is in the book, and co-wrote the book with Clint Ober along with Martin Zucker. So I want to welcome both of you tonight to this call, gentlemen. I'm just delighted to have you with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Excellent.
Same here. Same here. Very good to be here.
And as I hear that, I'm actually going to just adjust the level there and make sure that we can hear Dr. Sinatra loud and clear. So I want to give an official introduction. I'm going to read the official introduction, and then we will get into the conversation. So I'm going to read Clint Ober's bio. Clint Ober was a successful entrepreneur who built a very successful cable television company and subsequently an internet company. In 1993, at the height of his success, he developed an abscess that nearly destroyed his liver. It took a desperation experimental surgery to save his life. After recovering, he sold his company, shed his possessions, and set off on a personal journey looking for a higher purpose in life. In 1998, during his travels, he discovered earthing, and since then he has been single-mindedly focused on promoting the scientific exploration and practical applications for the concept. Mr. Ober has documented his amazing discovery and pursuit of scientific validation in the book Earthing, the most important health discovery ever, ? Co-authored with cardiologist Stephen Sinatra and health writer Martin Zucker. Earthing presents the landmark discovery that the Earth's energy upholds the electrical stability of our bodies and serves as a foundation for vitality and health. In an age of rampant chronic disease, reconnecting with the Earth's energy beneath our very feet is a simple but powerful way back to better health. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Stephen Sinatra. He is a board-certified cardiologist and certified psychotherapist with more than 35 years of clinical experience treating, preventing, and reversing heart disease. He also is certified in anti-aging medicine and nutrition. Until his recent retirement, Dr. Sinatra specialized in integrating conventional medical treatments for heart disease with complementary nutritional, anti-aging, and psychological therapies to help heal the inflammation and plaque processes that cause heart attacks and strokes. He is a fellow of the American College of Cardiology and assistant clinical professor of medicine at the University of Connecticut School of Medicine and a former chief of cardiology and medical education at Manchester CT Memorial Hospital. Dr. Sinatra has written numerous books, including Reverse Heart Disease Now, Lower Your Blood Pressure in 8 Weeks, The Sinatra Solution, Metabolic Cardiology, and along with Clint Ober and Martin Zucker, he's co-authored this remarkable book that has everybody talking. And their topic tonight is the title of the book, Earthing, the Most Important Health Discovery Ever. So welcome, gentlemen, and we're delighted to have you here. And we're ready to start asking you many questions about this extraordinary discovery. So I will begin perhaps with you, Clint, if you start with you and start at the beginning, because you are a non-scientist.
That's correct.
You have discovered something that I would imagine, honestly, a scientist could actually earn a Nobel Prize for a discovery of this magnitude, because it really appears that you've discovered one of nature's great healing secrets, and it's right under our noses, or rather right under our feet. And,
right.
And yet you're the one who discovered it, and you spent years marshaling and getting the scientific evidence and the support and, of people like Dr. Sinatra so that this information could come out in the world. Will you tell us how you discovered earthing and, what is your story and how you came to do this?
Well, to make sense of it, I probably have to preface it a little bit with my early life. I was raised on a ranch agricultural environment in Montana, and in that setting, we ran a lot of cattle, and the mission was to keep the cattle as healthy as possible. And so if a cow were to get sick, we would always cull it out of the herd. Then we'd ride the pasture and see if there were noxious weeds, or the water, check the water, see if there was something upstream in the water. And then we would move them to a different section of the pasture. But the essence of that was we always needed to keep the animals in their most natural environment and keep their environment as clean as possible so they didn't get sick. If they started getting sick, you had to call the vet. Then you turned the keys to the farm over to the bank and the vet and let them have it, because you couldn't afford back in those days to have the cost of veterinary expenses to maintain a herd. But yeah, that was one of the concepts that I kind of grew up with. And then when I came into the business world, I ended up in the cable television industry. And in that industry, we had to, as it was being developed across the nation, we had to drive ground rods into the earth and connect the cable to the ground rods before it went into the home. And this was to prevent charge, and then the cables were all shielded. And the concept here is, if you remember, for those who remember before cable, you had lots of snow and lots of interference in your TV signals, or
Right.
a police
Sure.
car would drive by and you would get interference, or an airplane. But, so by putting it in a shielded cable and then grounding it to the earth, we were able to deliver pristine pictures. So anyhow, I spent about 30 years in that field. And as you mentioned, I went through when I was about 49, I ended up, I hope I'm not rattling on here, I'm trying to make a point, or just
Right.
kind of give an essence of how I developed this. But when I was about 49, I was, like most young men, playing King of the Mountain. And, you put everything in, and at that age, it's about money and power. But anyhow, at that time, I was 49, I lived in Evergreen, Colorado, had a 5,000 square foot house overlooking Denver, Colorado. So I had reached, the pinnacle of success for my age at that time. But shortly thereafter, I ended up with having a root canal done, and a month later ended up with an abscess in my liver. And through that process, I think it's covered well in the book, but I wasn't really expected to survive. But when I went through this process, and I did survive, I woke up one morning and I knew from that day forward I wanted to make my life about something different other than money or accumulating things. So I pretty much gave everything to my kids and gave everything away, and I spent about 4 years on the road just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. But I knew I didn't want to play in the corporate environment any longer. But the point of it is, I grew up in an agricultural environment, and in Montana, also very close to the Native Americans, where everything is connected, and then spending all those years in the communications industry and learning that the Earth was electrical and ground, the essence of it, and what it did and how it prevented, charge and, again, shielded, cable from interference. So I kind of, one day I was sitting, there's a lot more to the story, and I don't want to
Right,
use up all our time.
and the story is in the book, and our readers will hear about it. But essentially, you made an intuitive connection between
Right.
between what was happening in people's bodies and the Earth, because you saw people wandering around and you noticed that they weren't connected to the Earth. Is that right?
Right. Yes. It was that background that I had that I was sitting in Sedona, Arizona one day on a park bench, and I was watching people walk by with the big rubber sole shoes. I had them on myself, and I thought, for some reason, I intuitively asked the question, is there a possibility that being insulated from the Earth, because I knew the body was conductive, and when you touch the Earth, you conduct ground, the energy of the Earth. And I asked this question, and I'm still working on it 12 years later.
It was a big question. But, first of all, many people don't know that the body, you sort of say that the body is not electric, but what was the term you just used?
Conductive.
It's conductive. And many people don't know that, do they?
No, they don't.
They don't.
If you actually accidentally touch live wire, you will get shocked.
Right.
That's meaning that your body is conductive.
Right.
And also everything in the body is electrical. Your brain, muscles, heart, everything in the body is electrical first, chemical second.
So that's a very important awareness for many of us who are disconnected and may not know that information, that the entire body is electrical. And then what is the connection to the Earth in terms of what the Earth is? Dr. Sinatra, you have said that earthing is the greatest support for the cardiovascular system that you've ever seen. You said it's the most important health breakthrough that I have ever encountered in my nearly 40 years of practicing medicine. Can you tell us why you made what are really extraordinary statements and kind of what you base them on? And I guess I want to hear about someone like Clint Ober, who isn't a scientist, who comes with this background and has this discovery and has to go to talk to scientists and doctors like you, which I think wasn't an easy thing. What it was that got your attention and why you got so passionate behind this discovery.
Well, first of all, Clint's a very humble guy. He does know a lot of science. Trust me. I mean, it's amazing how much he knows. But anyway, having said that, I met Clint 10 years ago at a conference, and he was talking about grounding to me. And I guess a lot of other doctors and scientists were slamming the door in his face, and all of a sudden he met me. And as a cardiologist, the heart is the most electrical organ in the body, so he was singing to the choir. Now, the heart being the most electrical is really the most vulnerable to chaotic, unnatural forces, such as, anything from cellular phones or cordless phones and stuff like that. However, it's the most susceptible to healing energies. And when we did some experiments with what we call heart rate variability, which is really the beat-to-beat analysis of the heart, and it's all electrical. It's totally electrical. Sure, the heart's a mechanical pump, but the way to get that pump going is through electrical circuits. I mean, if you cut into the heart, it's purely electric. So anyway, in some of these experiments we did on the heart, we found some amazing information. I mean, it just blows me away how Mother Earth, which is standing barefoot on the ground or sleeping on a grounded apparatus like a sheet or just being connected to the earth in any way, what it does to the heart and the rest of the body. And we have one paper coming out in Integrative Medicine in about 3 months. Basically, to summarize, what what grounding does, it literally puts the heart on a higher level of tranquility. What it does, it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system is enhanced, and the autonomic nervous system, or the sympathetic part of the autonomic system, which everybody has overdrive on today because of, society and stress and terrorism. So grounding really creates a tranquility in the body. It shifts what we call the parasympathetic curve, and it points in a direction of optimal cardiovascular health. And it does many other things as well. And the greatest discovery that I made with Clint's scientists, two physicists, was the fact that when you earth or when you ground yourself, now you, in addition to supporting the heart and the autonomic nervous system, you are thinning your blood at the same time. And we call that zeta potential. So the experiment we did on zeta potential, and that is submitted for publication, demonstrates that when you do ground, you are thinning your blood. And everybody needs their blood to be like red wine. The problem today is our blood is like red ketchup. And the reason why our blood is so hypercoagulable, or sticky, so to speak, is because we are chronically under the assaults of inflammation. I mean, we're chronically being inflamed by toxic radio frequency waves, EMF waves, mercury in the atmosphere, heavy metals, insecticides, pesticides, cigarette smoke, trans fats, vaccinations, pharmaceutical drugs. I mean, I could talk forever on what causes inflammation, but the fact that earthing and taking in the natural energy of the earth puts the fires out in the body is just extraordinary. So, and the way it puts the fires out is basically it offers lots of electrons, and it offers thinning of the blood. And whenever you thin the blood, you're literally increasing oxygen delivery to the tissues. And when you do that, you're driving the body into a state of healing as to a state of inflammation and illness and disease and destruction. So I'm very excited.
Okay. We can definitely hear about that, and I want to talk more about inflammation. I'm going to ask you this question, Clint, because when you started out doing this and you were conducting your own research, and you obviously had to get enough research together so that you could convince people like Dr. Sinatra, who's at a significant conference to talk to you. I want you to talk about some of the studies that you did and the things that you some of the things that you discovered, because I know that you started to create these to make these bed sheets, the conductive bed sheets, so that they could sleep inside while they were connected to the Earth's energy. So will you kind of talk about a little bit of that process and what a conductive bed sheet was? And obviously being grounded is I can just go stand outside and I'm grounded. But here you were creating these things, and can you talk a little bit about why it's so important for us to sleep grounded?
Right. Well, I'll go to the bed sheets real quick, but I think the most exciting thing to me was when I started grounding myself and other people. First of all, I thought it had more to do with, the sleep. And so I would ground myself and I started sleeping better. But I started grounding a few other people, and I grounded one person one day specifically, and his pain started to go down dramatically, really quite quickly. And I didn't believe it myself, but then I noticed that my own pain, chronic pain, has started to dissipate significantly. And that's when I really knew something was going on, but I couldn't explain it, and there was no resources available. If you want to identify the cause of chronic pain, it's pretty much in all of the medical texts, cause unknown. But anyhow, it was later that I ran into Stephen, and when I mentioned that to Stephen, he suggested that I look at inflammation. Inflammation back then was not a popular word. And once I understood what inflammation was, the immune system is producing reactive oxygen species, those are electrical terms. And I learned that these reactive oxygen species were oxidizing healthy tissue. So if I grounded the body, the only thing I could be doing is adding free electrons to the body and preventing these free radicals for short, from oxidizing. Rather than oxidizing the healthy tissue, they were neutralized by the ground or by the Earth's electrical ground,
So,
free electrons.
as I understood it, and because I'm totally a non-scientist, and I'll talk about layman's terms, inflammation,
Right.
we all know, is considered like the number one thing in terms of disease, and affecting and increasing the sort of aging process. Yes.
Right, yes. And, the concept here is, in nature, inflammation really doesn't occur like chronic inflammation where you have a chronic health disorder like arthritis, MS, and so on, if you look at the animal kingdom. And this is when I begin to understand that, okay, the body releases some free radicals, let's say, to reduce pathogens or to get rid of damaged tissue. And these free radicals, they have to be reduced within nanoseconds. If they don't, they're going to steal an electron from somewhere. And in this case, they steal it from a healthy cell. The healthy cell sends out another signal. The immune system responds more and releases more reactive oxygen species. And that sets up the autoimmune loop that feeds chronic inflammation like arthritis and many of these health disorders.
And so when you started grounding people, you noticed a significant or you got the feedback that people were getting significant results.
Yeah. Sometimes within 10, 15, 30 minutes, they would have a complete reduction of pain, of the hot burning chronic pain. And that's when I knew that, okay, if a human being were standing barefoot on the earth, then your body would be charged with free electrons. And so it would be rather impossible for the immune system to oxidize healthy tissue. And that's kind of what you see in nature. And so, did I say that right?
Yes, I believe you did. Now,
Yeah,
so in terms of grounding ourselves, grounding, the earth is there, it's free, right? All of us
Yes.
can run outside and run about barefoot, and we can ground ourselves. So grounding is available. When we say earthing and we say grounding, it's available to all of us.
Yeah, and it used to be that was our normal lifestyle. We lived on the earth barefoot. I mean,
right.
Throughout most of the time.
And clearly, obviously, in contemporary society, many of us are either too busy to go outside and spend time grounding ourselves on a daily basis, or frankly,
Sure.
we may live in places, environments where it's impossible to do that. And
That's correct.
which is why you started creating things like the bed sheets.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I'll get into that. How the bed sheets and these grounding devices really developed. I never had in mind that I was going to be in the business of developing earthing products. We had to develop these products in order to do our studies.
Right.
And as we did our studies, then some of the subjects wanted them for themselves or their relatives. Some of the researchers and docs involved, they wanted them for their friends and relatives. And then, so all of a sudden, this business or this demand started to build. So I started refining the process of, coming up with a product that people could use and that would have some life expectancy. And at the same time, I had to use a noble metal like, silver, gold, because you can't sleep on copper or nickel-plated or any loud metals you can't have exposed to the body for extended periods. So
when we
anyhow,
talk about sleeping grounded, you developed a way of getting people back, and you can all read the details in the book in terms of
right.
how Clint did this, so that you could be lying in your bed, which is raised off the floor. You can be, you can be in an apartment or whatever it is, but there was a way of getting you back so that you were connected to the earth, right?
Right. Yeah. In order to do the studies, again, we had to put a ground rod in the earth or use an existing electrical ground system and have a ground plane in the bed. And what this is, it's a sheet that we ended up developing, a cotton sheet with silver fibers woven into a grid throughout the whole device. On the end, you have so it looks just like a sheet,
right,
or a half sheet. And it has a snap
I have
on
one,
it.
so yes, it looks
Yes.
like a half sheet, and you put
Yes,
it on the bed and you lie on top of it. Why is sleeping grounded or earthed so important,
Well,
particularly the sleeping?
Yeah, well, first of all, I believe that 90% of all healing occurs during sleep.
Mm-hmm.
All of your hormone cascades and, the different stages of sleep. And if you're stressed during sleep, it's like the cortisol study we did. That was the first real study we did. We took a dozen people and measured their cortisol over a 24-hour period, every 4 hours, and then we had them sleep grounded for a month. And at the end of that period, we, took the cortisol again, and all of the cortisol profiles synchronized perfectly. They all looked identical, where before they all looked like spaghetti. So if somebody is not sleeping, they really have a cortisol issue. I mean, it's the fight or flight or the stress response. But the primary reason people aren't sleeping is because they have elevated cortisol. So by putting, in this study, we showed that everything normalizes cortisol. So the concept of the sheets is very simple. Put your feet back on the earth during sleep. It's about the only time you can really do it in our modern culture. And that's why I focused on sleep, or on the bed.
Sure. And you get 8 hours. Now, I do have some questions coming in. There are people who bought the sheets because they were excited about this whole idea, and they're saying that they haven't noticed any significant difference. So the question is, someone is saying she has a grounding sheet, she's had it for a few months, she doesn't really notice any difference. And is there a reason for this, and what changes should she be noticing?
Well, I'd have to ask a few questions to learn what she's doing specifically.
Okay.
Is it grounded to the earth? Is it grounded to an electrical outlet? Has the electrical ground been verified that it is working condition? Does she sleep with socks on? There's a bunch of issues.
There's a bunch of things. And what I want to address for some of you who may have those kinds of questions, so that we can use this time as effectively as possible with Dr. Sinatra and Clint, we are going to have another call with Martin Zucker for those of you who have purchased the product or decide to do so that he can really get into the specifics of some of the reasons why some of you may the more technical stuff, if you like. And we will be arranging that call for you. And because some of you are also asking right now, again, I want you to know that we have at wellnessrevolutionsummit.com/earthing dash FAQ.html is a fact sheet that you can get, that you can be sort of exploring as we're talking to this, which will answer a lot of questions for you. So that's available to you right now. I want to talk with Dr. Sinatra to kind of really address this issue of inflammation and, some of the things you said about heart disease, because inflammation is such a huge issue, and you guys had a word in the book which was interesting. You had inflammaging. And so I wanted you to talk about why you see this as earthing as such an anti-aging medicine, and you've talked about heart rate, the heart rate variability, and so on. But could you talk about inflammation and aging and what you're seeing with this?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about, but one of the reasons why I wrote the book Metabolic Cardiology is because whenever you support a tissue with Q10 and ribose and carnitine and magnesium, you provide energy substrates that provide ATP support, which literally rejuvenates cells, restores cells, but most importantly, repairs cells. Now, when you ground to the earth, since the earth is struck by lightning thousands of times a minute, particularly around the equator, the earth is full of electrons. And Clint was talking about this before. So if you're sleeping on a grounded sheet where electrons are going into your body from the ground or from the home, or you're walking barefoot in the park or on the beach and you're absorbing all these electrons, it's like taking handfuls and handfuls of antioxidants. So not only are these electrons available to tie up free radicals and help diminish what we call oxidative stress. And whenever you do that, you diminish inflammation, which diminishes aging. So it's a series of steps. But the other thing that Jim Oshman mentioned, one of the other physicists that we work with, is that these electrons are also available for ATP support, where when you're taking in all these electrons in a body, now you're not only putting fires out by sequestering free radicals, but you have available electrons that can be driven down the mitochondria or the intermitochondrial chain to produce ATP. And again, whenever you produce ATP, you are, and if we remember from high school biology, whenever you produce ATP, you're literally rejuvenating the cell. I call ATP the fountain of youth, the real fountain of youth. So when you do that, you're repairing cells, you're restoring cells, you're rejuvenating cells. That's why grounding is so beautiful, because it does everything right. You're taking in natural Mother Earth energy. Not only are you improving heart rate variability and cortisol dynamics and reducing inflammation, you're providing electrons for ATP support, and you're thinning the blood at the same time. So grounding does everything right. And when I say everything right, it just supports the body in so many different mechanisms, whether it's hormonal, whether it's under mitochondrial, free radical, energy substrates. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So it's right in front of our eyes. It's right beneath our feet. It's one of the most provocative and most beneficial cures I've ever come across in my lifetime.
Well, that is a very significant thing to say. I know that Clint, you say in the book that you personally grounded thousands of people, men, women, young and old. I know that you, Dr. Sinatra, obviously have seen some extraordinary effects with grounding, and we'll actually talk about EMF in a little while. I would like to know from you, let's start with Clint, what have your general observations been in terms of things you've seen with the elderly or with young people, women's health issues, men's health issues, if you can just give us a sense of some of the results that you've seen?
Well, I have grounded about everybody in every situation. In the early days, I grounded a lot of ladies with MS and arthritis and lupus, because they were the only subjects they would let me play with. But anyhow, the main thing, they're,
and there are many stories in the books and some extraordinary ones.
It's a very compromised group of people. But anyhow, as far as, if with arthritis, you can take almost anybody who has chronic arthritis and ground them either with the patches, the bands, or sleeping grounded. And within 30 minutes, they're going to have a significant reduction of inflammation. You'll see their skin color change, their respiration will change, their demeanor changes. And a lot of the ladies that had especially lupus, and they would have the flares, and as soon as they felt the flare coming on, they would get grounded, stay grounded, and it was just totally life-changing for them. I could go on and on about women's health, and
well, I know that you've seen results with women with PMS and hot flashes, yes, and so on.
Yes, everything in the body is electrical. Everything is, it's the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic, the sympathetic. These are electrical balances, and when the parasympathetic, we become too sympathetic or wear out the parasympathetic, you burn out the adrenals, right, and then the overstimulation of the sympathetic is really what's behind a lot of the fibromyalgia and many with this group. But anyhow, so it's getting grounded. First thing it does is it puts the fire out, puts the inflammation, reduces the pain, and by reducing pain alone, that totally changes the physiology of the human being, and they have hope and so on. But anyhow, I could, it ranges from everything. But I'll tell you some more interesting ones are some of the older people, especially those who have been in hospice that I've been able to work with. One gentleman had just debilitating arthritis. I mean, crippled up like I had never seen in my life. And he was in hospice, and who knows, it's something less than 6 months to live, I guess. But anyhow, we grounded this individual, and within weeks he was he didn't recover, but he lived another 5 years. But the main thing he said to me after he got grounded, he said, "I no longer feel like I have disease in my body. The fire is out." But it's just giving. I mean, so many people are under the stress of inflammation and chronic pain, and it's really, they just need to get grounded.
Well, absolutely, and I can just say from my own personal experience, I actually had an experience today. I started using the grounding sheet on the bed, and for me, it was really about sleep, and particularly my husband, who tossed and turned all night, and so then I couldn't sleep. It made a huge difference in terms of getting better sleep and more rest, and he had a chronic knee injury and felt relief with that. So I had those experiences, but just actually today, I happen to have chronic sinus issues, and before I ever come on a call, I always have to take Benadryl to get on the call. For some reason today, as I was preparing for the call, it was a beautiful day, so I said, okay, I'm going to go outside and ground myself for an hour. And I was very congested before I went out, but I thought it was a little early. I didn't want to take Benadryl and then have to take a second one. I went outside, I worked for an hour, and I came back upstairs, and I was suddenly shocked to realize that the congestion had completely disappeared. And that was something that I hadn't even connected with earthing. I just had not been aware of it, and it suddenly just opened up a door. So that was, something today. I was like, wow, this is really exciting.
Yeah, I have a theory about that. And Clint mentioned it. A lot of us have adrenal dysfunction, especially anybody with autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
So whether it's rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or multiple sclerosis, these people are in a constant battle with their immune system because their immune system is supercharged. So think about this. You ground yourself, and what you're doing now, you're making what little cortisol you have left. Now you're making it synchronous with your body. You're making it harmonious, where the experiments with grounding, particularly in women, showed that there's a normal, what we call diurnal variation of cortisol. So Clint said it before, it's like a bunch of spaghetti strands that are now synchronized into the way cortisol should be released in the body. So I have a theory that when you do ground and you are battling any autoimmune illness, it could be thyroiditis, which grounding really improves. It could be, there's so many autoimmune illnesses today because of the toxic environment. And when you do ground, now you're taking your adrenal gland and you're optimizing it with the normal secretion, the circadian rhythms of the body. So not only does the Mother Earth energy give us back what we need, but it synchronizes our body into optimum healing. So, again, it's only my hypothesis, but if I ever wrote another book on simple cures, I would really expand on that.
Well, thank you. That is wonderful, and certainly as somebody with autoimmune issues, I'm experiencing the benefit. People are asking for that fact sheet again, so let me give you that site once more: wellnessrevolutionsummit.com/earthing, EARTHING dash FAQ or hyphen FAQ.html, all in lowercase. I will send you this link. I'm not going to give it out again. I'm going to send it to you after the call, but for those of you who got it, you can use it as we're going along. One of the things that people are asking are, what are the methods of grounding? So maybe we can talk about the natural and free ones, and then talk about some of the wonderful things that you've developed, Clint.
Okay, well, the number one thing to do is to, and that's what we tell everybody when they get the book, go outdoors, take a chair.
Read the book outdoors.
Read it, and you can experience what you're reading about. And this is physiological. This is physics. It's not, this is measurable. What happens to the body when you touch the earth is you become energized, electrified with earth energy. And the Earth energy has rhythms. The amplitude of Earth's electric field is highest at noon. It's lowest at midnight. So the rhythmic rise and fall of Earth's energy is kind of like a metronome I believe, for the hormone cascades. I think we saw that very clearly in the cortisol study. But the number one thing to do is, if you have pain, you're fatigued, you're stressed, go outdoors, take your shoes off, put your feet, sit comfortably on the earth, walk on the grass if you can, barefoot. And if it's not possible, just put your feet on the cement and just sit there and just relax for 30 minutes. You will have a complete physiological change in your blood. Your blood's going to normalize. You're going to feel better. Your color's going to come up. Your energy's going to come up. So that's the number one thing you can do at any time. And before anybody does anything any further, we ask everybody to go experiment with earthing, a half hour a day. If you get some benefit, then do it 2.5 hours a day, or extend it until you understand that it affects your physiology. And but that's the number one thing, is just get everybody to go outdoors and take their shoes off and experience it, because so many people haven't touched the earth in 30 years. It's incredible. And especially our kids today. When I was a kid, we were barefoot all the time. And it was hard to get shoes on us unless we were going to church or going to school. And today, kids wear shoes from the time they get up until the time they go to the bed, from the time they're born until, on. And but you have to remember, in 1960 is when we invented plastics, and the first thing we did was put them on the soles of shoes.
Sure.
That's when autoimmune disease and everything really began to skyrocket. All the carpets in the homes are polymer based. They're insulated. But anyhow, the main thing is just go outdoors and put your feet on the earth.
But the reality, of course, being that for some people that isn't so automatic. We live in a culture where people spend an awful lot of time indoors, and we aren't very close to the earth, and we
Right.
also live in places where the weather is awful. So
Right.
let's talk about how a little bit about how they can get grounded.
Well, over the years I kind of studied when is the best time to ground people and what is the best form. And during sleep, obviously, is number one, because you're there for 8 hours. You don't have to do anything. Just put a sheet on your bed, put your feet on it, and go to sleep. There's no compliance issues. And that is the number one thing that I can recommend for anyone. And that's why I put so much energy and effort in developing the cotton sheets. So anyhow, it comes with a ground rod or with an outlet tester. If you have a newer home, you can use your earth ground in your electrical outlets. If you have an older home before 1960, you just put a ground rod in the earth, and there's a little wire that comes with it. Plug it into the sheet, lay down. It's like laying on the earth. And then the second product is just a simple floor mat that is made of, it's pure rubber, and it's loaded with conductive carbon. And so you put it on the floor, and again, it has a cord that you connect it to the ground, but you can put your feet on it. You can put it on your desk, put your hands on it, use it for a mouse pad. You can sit on it. It comes with a nice little conductive cloth cover that you can put on it and lay it on the couch and sit on it or whatever. Or worst case, you use it like a heating pad. Anywhere at any time. But that's the most universal and the most convenient thing for anybody to really experience the power of earthing, for grounding themselves when they're at the computer all day.
Great.
A lot of elderly people watch TV or sit on the couch all day or in a chair, and so on.
And would it? And I just want to address again, for those of you who sent questions, there are people who are saying they've used them, and someone who says she used the bed sheets and she could feel the difference immediately. There are other people who have questions about those. If you go to the site that we will send to you at the end of the questions, at the end of the program, you will get those questions. For those of you who got the book, read the book, because it also answered those questions. But we have a site that is dedicated and will answer a lot of the questions that you're asking. So I'm not going to use this time to do that, because we will be doing a follow-up call in regard to all of the details that you're asking. I want to cover the whole context for this and give people a sense of the scope of what earthing can do for you. Clint, in your experience, are there any drawbacks to earthing?
Um, none that I know of. I mean, again, you always have to put earthing in perspective. It is the body's most natural state. I mean, for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, however long we've been here, we were barefoot and connected to the earth throughout all time. And it's only been, the last few hundred years that we even put wood floors in our homes. And today it's different, of course. But we've slowly, over the last few hundred years, begun to slowly insulate ourselves from the earth, and more so in the last 50 years.
So basically, people don't have to be concerned that they could be electrocuted or that there are any side effects to what they're doing.
No, there's no side effects whatsoever touching the earth. In fact, it is, again, it provides the electrical stability of the body. It provides a signal for the autonomic nervous system to help balance the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And most of all, it charges the body with free electrons to prevent inflammation. Yeah. Think, Earth's free electrons ground free radicals. That is exactly and precisely what they do. So the only time there is an issue with grounding is if you were, and we have built-in safety features, so that, no, there is no possibility of any danger or harm.
And when people are finding that they may not be experiencing the results they were looking for, it's important to look and make sure that you are properly grounded, and that's what we'll get into with Martin.
Yeah, what I would say, first of all, go put your feet on the earth for 30 minutes. What you're experiencing right there is what you should be experiencing when you're grounded. If you're not experiencing that, you can have a ground that is not functional, or a snap could be bad on a bed sheet, a wire could be, these are devices.
Right.
So there's other things that can be wrong, but be assured that this is physics. I mean, when you are grounded, you're different. Your body is different.
So go outside and have the experience if you possibly can, because there you will feel the difference. It's basically being connected to what is natural.
All we're doing is replicating standing barefoot on the earth by providing these products. See, it's the earth that does that provides the health benefit. These are just extension cords to reconnect to or plug you back into the earth. The devices themselves, they are mechanical, but always remember it's the earth, it's Earth's energy. So these are just...
Yes, it's the Earth's energy. So now, Dr. Sinatra, you are an expert in electromedicine, I understand. And one of the things that really struck me is the story I read in the book about how your eldest son almost died as a result of electropollution, and how earthing helped bring him back from the edge. Electropollution, EMF, this is a reality of our everyday lives, and I wondered if you would, without, I don't want us to go way off, but I think it is a factor and something that people are concerned about with their computers and all of the wireless technology. Can you tell us how your son was affected as a cardiologist, how bad you think this problem is, and how earthing helped your son?
Sure. It's a good question. But before I do that, I just wanted to mention that we don't like to earth people taking Coumadin.
Yes, I was going to ask you that.
Unless they're followed by their physician really closely. We've had so many anecdotal case studies where patients taking Coumadin, their blood got a lot thinner when they were earthed, especially diabetics, which really helps the people. But again, they have to work very closely with their doctor.
So when people are on medication, what would you advise? Because there are
if they're taking thyroid, even myself, I used to take thyroid medication. I developed a thyroiditis probably from a cell phone years ago, by the way. I mean, when I go back and look at it. But even with myself, I stopped taking thyroid medicine because after grounding, I didn't need it. The other thing, too, is the only medicines that I worry about with grounding is, again, if people are taking a lot of thyroid medication and especially Coumadin. Other than that, I have no concerns about medical therapy, pharmaceutical drugs, when people are grounding. The other thing, too, is, depending on how healthy a patient is, a patient may not notice anything with the ground if they're very, very healthy. Conversely, if they're very, very sick and toxic, let's say somebody with very severe Lyme disease, and then all of a sudden they start grounding, they may get a Herx reaction where they're tying up so many free radicals that the body feels overwhelmed and it's going through a detoxification reaction. So we got to be careful in people who are very, very sick, yet, they may develop some, it's not really side effects to the grounding, it's side effects of the battle going on in their body. I mean, their body is being helped, but they're producing a lot of toxic debris from the reduction in free radical stress. So, not every person is going to feel terrific on grounding. We've had some people develop muscle cramps and some findings of not feeling well, and it's basically due because of a massive detoxification reaction going on.
That's very interesting because we have someone from Ramsey, a woman here who's saying that her bed sheet made her feel really agitated and she couldn't sleep. And so she's saying, does this mean I'm not very healthy? So this could be a form of detoxification?
Yes. I mean, remember, as far as the experiments on grounding, there's only a couple of dozen. I mean, once there's a few hundred, a lot of these things will be answered. But for now, when I see patients who have a reaction like that, I tell them to go slower, and eventually, guess what happens? Everything comes back to normal. I'll tell you stories about coenzyme Q10. I would use coenzyme Q. I've been using coenzyme Q10 for 30 years. I had patients I put on CoQ10. They tell me I have a caffeine effect. I'm jittery. I feel like I've drank 10 cups of coffee. And what happens is that CoQ10, because it's a powerful electron donor, will rescue any tissue in need. I had the same theory that grounding will rescue tissues in need. So when you give these tissues lots of electrons that are starving for electrons, sure you can get a reaction in the body. And, I've seen that caffeine reaction, that jittery reaction with CoQ10. I don't see why I wouldn't see it with grounding as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
All anecdotal. No science behind that. That's anecdotal. But still, hey, listen, a lot of anecdotal cases. My son's an anecdotal case, and that's why I went 100% into grounding, because basically if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be on this electromedicine new frontier surge right now.
Absolutely. So now don't forget to tell us the story with your son.
Yeah, basically he graduated college. He was a president of his investment club, and he worked on Wall Street. He was working on a sea of computers. He had cordless phones in his office. He was on 2 cell phones at once. He was trading incessantly during the day. Long story short, he started to lose weight, 10 pounds in the first 3 months, another 10 pounds 3 months later, 20 pounds the following year, another 30 pounds the following year. He lost over 100 pounds. His immune system shut down. His neuroendocrine system shut down. His pituitary gland shut down. He had no thyroid function. He had severe hypothermia, where his body temperature was only 95 degrees. And he developed severe immune system dysfunction. He was prone to bacteria invasion that the normal body has. Like parasites started to take over. And to be honest with you, I was terrified. I took him to over 100 doctors, major universities, major clinics in the country, universities that, and his case was so overwhelming for doctors, they couldn't figure it out. And finally, with the help of angelic messengers and a couple of really sharp physicians, we did figure it out. It was the electropollution syndrome. And his grounding was so important for him. When Clint first gave him a sheet, he told me, "Dad, this is the only thing that's helped me over the last 6 years." And
how quickly did he experience relief?
Right away, because he had polyneuropathy. He couldn't sleep. He was weak, and he was in the hospital 45 days. I had to treat him with IV amino acids and vitamin C and Q10 and carnitine. He got all his IV nutrition because his total GI tract shut down. But once he started to ground, he started to come back. and it got so incredible that he wouldn't sleep in a motel. He would be sleeping in tents all the time on the ground. He didn't want to, and he was getting away from cell phone towers and stuff like that. But he attributes grounding to be the major intervention that got him back to his health. Now, it wasn't just a grounding, of course. I mean, it was 45 days in the hospital because he went from 83 pounds. He gained back another. He went up to 120. Got discharged from the hospital, and then now he's about 155 pounds right now. So he's still coming back. He used to weigh 195. He's almost 6 feet tall. So he's doing a lot better. And I'm very, very grateful to Clint and the grounding science and the one or two doctors that really helped him over the last 6 years.
Well, that is something because many people are dealing with EMF and electropollution, so this is something that they may find will give them some relief.
Yeah, and I studied this in detail, and there's about, in Europe, where this syndrome was really talked about over a decade ago, there was about maybe 3 to 6% of the population, but I think right now the population is 10 to 20%, and people aren't getting it because, if you look at autism, and Clint's an expert on computers, and I'm sure he'll tell you this. I mean, there was one case in maybe 10,000 before 1970. And then when computers came on the scene and everybody got disconnected, and when the wireless technologies and the radio frequencies, and now we're battling some of the airport scanners right now, which, by the way, some of them do emit radiation. There's two types. There's one that is more radiation unsafe than the other. But the fact that radiation is accumulative, and it's my belief, if you know what tensegrity is, when each cell in the body communicates, so if you look at all the explosion in cell phones and you look at autistic behavior now, it's like 1 in 63 males as opposed to 1 in 10,000. So something has occurred in our society over the last 4 decades. And sure, we have thimerosal in vaccines, and we have heavy metals, and we have insecticides and pesticides and food dyes and allergies and gluten. But all this stuff combined with a perfect storm of toxic EMF, I'm convinced when these toxic waves cross the blood-brain barrier, and when these women who are carrying children are on cell phones all the time, the chaotic vibration goes into the ear, but because we're an electrical being, it's transferred all the way down to the uterus. And I just feel that, and I don't have any proof about that. This is my own intuitive theory, but I just feel that it's this enormous electropollution that's affecting the newborn and the unborn, where there's the most risk because their nervous system is just developing.
Well, I think that we're certainly seeing the consequences of EMFs, and it does make total sense. And thanks for acknowledging it's your intuitive sense, but you certainly have been working in this arena and have a real understanding of it. I want to ask a question, and I guess Clint would answer this. A caller from Albuquerque is asking, what about ground currents in an urban environment from high use of electrical grid to ground? Could these be disruptive compared to grounding in a rural setting? Does it make any difference where you're grounded?
Well, I just spent four days last week at an EMF conference at the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco, where we had scientists from all over the world come together, and the main topic is what we're addressing here. And in short, I mean, this person can contact me directly if not. But anyhow, in short, the Earth is, you have to remember, the Earth is infinitely large. And when you touch the Earth, your body and the Earth become one, electrically speaking. But what this gentleman, I think, is referring to is the concept that, and here's a big misconception that most people have, is everybody believes that electricity, electrons come from the dam into the house, light the light bulb, go out the other side, go into the Earth, and find their way back to the power company. This is a misconception, and it is not true. Ground currents are primarily generated by geological events. Like lightning. It's like when the sun shines on the Earth, it electrifies, the sun side of the Earth, and you have 4 giant eddies. that are circulating a DC current on the sun side. On the dark side, there's another 4 currents, but they're, much lower amplitude. But there's everything on the Earth is electrical, but there's a lot of misconceptions out there, and we're working on a paper right now to try to answer all of these questions. But the Earth is ground. Ground provides the electrical stability for our entire grid, for everything electrical in our homes related to the grid, and now we're finding to the body itself. So I don't know where to go because that it takes too much detail to answer.
Okay, but that at least gives us a context.
Yes.
We have a couple of questions because we were talking about people going outside and experiencing earthing naturally, and they're saying, well, what about all the pesticides that are used and so on? Does that sort of mitigate, I guess, the effect of earthing?
Well, sure. I mean, you have to be a little bit smart here. I mean, if you live in a lime-infested area with lime ticks,
right.
I mean, you don't want to walk barefoot up to your knees in tall grass. If your lawn is sprayed with insecticide or pesticide, I wouldn't ground on it at all. I mean, I'd wait 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, you have to use a little common sense. The other thing too is I told the dean of my medical school. I actually gave a lecture at Albany Medical College, and the dean was there, and he went out and grounded, and he stepped on a hornet's nest. So I mean,
not good.
I mean, when you do attempt to ground, but look, if you have a concrete floor in your basement and you live in Maine in the middle of winter, you can go downstairs and walk on your concrete floor, right, Clint? You'll get grounded right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or if you have a chimney in your house, and you live in Minnesota, well, sit on a hearth and put your back against that chimney or touch it with your hand and you'll be grounded, So there's lots of ways you can ground yourself safely. I haven't heard of anybody spraying insecticides or pesticides in a chimney, but anyway,
right.
It's common sense.
Yeah, thank you. But those are great suggestions. All right, so this is a question from one of our listeners in British Columbia. He says, we're a bioelectrical life form and as such are subject to disruptive frequencies and requiring retuning and grounding on a regular basis. So do you need to do any adjustment of the surrounding area as well as to the physical body?
That's an EMF question, and let me try to address. Yes. Basically, what happens when you're grounded, like I said a moment ago, when you're grounded, when you touch the earth, you and the earth are one and the same, electrically speaking. Okay, so interference or waves, we live in a sea of electromagnetic frequencies. It's everything from an airplane communication to a taxi to a garage door opener to the millions of cell phones that we're exposed to, radio stations. It's infinite. But the main thing is when you are grounded to the earth, it's like, let me try to say this real quick. Let's say that your body has a million electrons in it. And so all of these frequencies, when you are insulated from the earth, it can perturb the electrons of your body and, interfere with the normal electron transfer chains and everything that go on in the body. Now, when you are connected to the earth has an infinite supply of electrons. And so, and electrical frequencies travel at the speed of light. Mm-hmm. So when you're grounded, these frequencies can't perturb the whole earth. So you reduce the perturbation of your own cells by adding your body to the earth and so on. It's kind of challenging to say this. But so... But on the other hand, when you're ungrounded, you absolutely want to reduce your exposure to anything that you can. You don't want to have any unnecessary electrical cords or electrical devices plugged in near your body, especially during sleep. Again, there's a lot of people want to go to the extreme and reduce everything and eliminate everything. If you could, that'd be great, but that's not practical. Right. So the key to it is identifying and reducing exposure.
But particularly when you're sleeping,
yes.
If you have your alarm clock, clock radio, the lamp, all those things that we take for granted. Those are things that you can eliminate that can make a difference.
Yeah, your
Yes,
bedroom has to be safe. You want to get all that electricity out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, you want to electrically sanify your bedroom. If you don't do anything else, do that.
Okay, good. This is a question for you, Dr. Sinatra, because you talked about the drug Coumadin, and I don't know if this is a similar one. Someone is asking about whether it's safe to take a blood thinner like warfarin using
Yeah, warfarin
grounding.
and Coumadin are the same.
Okay.
Yeah, warfarin and Coumadin are the same, and basically, if somebody is on warfarin or Coumadin, they must work with their doctor, because if they ground and sleep grounded and take warfarin at the same time, the blood's going to get excessively thin, and it may get too thin. So, it's not a contraindication, but it's a warning that if you do it, you must work with your doctor. A lot of our patients, for example, take less Coumadin now with the grounding. And by the way, Coumadin is a medication that causes calcification of blood vessels. So what I'm doing with my patients that are still on Coumadin that I still work with, I'm literally telling them to ground more, and they're being followed closely. But if I can get them on a lesser dosage of Coumadin, that's great, because that means they'll have less calcification of blood vessels, because, Coumadin is what we call a vitamin K2 antagonist. So I feel good about grounding coming along to help these people, especially if they have to be on long-term Coumadin for years and years and years.
Helpful. Thank you very much. Okay, this is, I'm only going to be able to do a couple more questions, and then I really want to let them know how they can take advantage of some of these incredible products that you've created. Cassandra is asking, she said she struggled with insomnia. She got the earthing sheet, and in the first week she slept so much better, and she was absolutely thrilled. And then she started tossing and turning again. And as far as she knows, it's plugged in correctly. She's getting the signal that it's grounded. And so she wondered if you had anything to, any light to shed on that. And I didn't know, so I wanted to ask you. Any light to shed on that?
Well, I've seen that happen myself. People, it depends on how much stress and how much cortisol you're dumping out. And the other thing too is the novelty. In other words, the body adjusted. But I would tell Cassandra to look at her bedroom very carefully, and she may have to get a voltmeter or maybe an RF detector and see what's going on in that bedroom, because something tells me that she gave herself aspirin for a headache. She got rid of the headache, but now something else is going on, and the body may have readjusted. So that bedroom could be very, very toxic. I don't know, Clint, if you have anything else to add to that.
Again, sleep is so subjective. It's generally related to cortisol, meaning related to, life stresses, and no matter how grounded somebody is, if they're experiencing a certain situation in their life that's, a fight or flight, producing a fight or flight response. Again, I can't answer this without knowing more information, but it's very subjective.
That's absolutely correct. The other thing too is Clint's right. I mean, if you have overwhelming stress, or if you're drinking a lot of alcohol and drinking a lot of caffeine, remember, nocturnal alcohol and caffeine will also produce cortisol. And remember, grounding is going to regulate that cortisol. So if you're dumping cortisol from either too much alcohol, caffeine, or if there's horrific electricity in that bedroom that we don't know about, or RF coming in and we don't know about, it's something to look at.
Okay, good. Thank you. A question: is grounding something that you've seen has helped stroke victims?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that. Whenever we have a stroke, a stroke can be caused by almost anything, but it can be a thrombosis or a plaque rupture or, thickening of the blood. And what I've seen in some people who have had stroke, when you ever increase circulation, and I mean, and the circulation, any circulation could be increased, because grounding, remember, thins the blood. Whenever you increase oxygen delivery, sure, you can get an improvement even after the stroke has occurred. So whether it's any neurodegenerative illness or diabetes or cancer or heart disease, when you increase oxygen delivery, you're improving that tissue. Sure. Could a stroke be improved? Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, this is the final question for you gentlemen, and then I'm going to tell them about this wonderful opportunity to get grounding products. Where do both of you see the future of earthing? What is it that you hope for? Because if we could get this word out to everybody and have people have a new understanding of their relationship to the earth, and also to actually understand that that their body is electrical, they're bioelectrical, it really could cause an incredible healthcare revolution and frankly save a lot of money in terms of healthcare costs. So what is your hope? You've been doing this for, is it 12, 15 years, Clint?
Right. You have to remember, I was a pioneer in the cable television industry. I was a pioneer in the satellite industry and helping develop a lot of things. It takes years to get things going. But once I recognized what grounding was, even before the science really, the mechanisms were understood, and we're still getting to that point. But I knew then that within 10 years, 20 years, everybody has to be grounded because everyone's health is compromised. I have observed this over 10 years in hundreds and hundreds of situations. When you ground people, you improve their health. But more importantly, you look at the animal world in nature where large animals live outdoors 24/7. They do not have the chronic health disorders. If you look in parts of the country where people are more barefoot, just like, for instance, going to Canada, that's the inflammation belt. The further south you go towards the Mexican border and below, the less inflammation you have. Down there, they wear less shoes. People in the northern part of the country, they hardly ever go barefoot. So, I mean, but anyhow, our job right now is to get the science laid down and get another dozen studies produced in various different areas and so on. But I see, to me, it's very clear. The mattress has to be grounded. The sheeting, that is the simplest thing to do. People, once every 8 years, somebody buys a new mattress. There's 3 million of them sold a year. There's no real difference cost-wise versus buying a grounded mattress versus a non-grounded mattress. So what I'm looking at is trying to find ways to add value to existing products, like shoes.
So when will you have the shoes and the mattress for us?
Well, we have experimental ones coming out first quarter of next year.
Very exciting.
But, yeah.
Very exciting. Okay. I'm sorry. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. It's just I see a new industry. Every bit as important as any aspect of innovation or technology that's ever come along, whether it's cell phone, telephone, radio, and so on.
Well, you have been a pioneer, as you said, in many industries, and you certainly are a pioneer in this one. Our job is to get this message to everybody that we know and to share the information. So I want to send all of our readers to Wellness Revolution Summit, all of our listeners to wellnessrevolutionsummit.com/earthing. That is where you can find the special offer link. And what Clint and Dr. Sinatra's team have done for us is to create a special opportunity for you to purchase the universal mat. This is the mini kit where you get a mat that you could sit on at the computer. You can put it on your desk on the computer. You can sit on it on a chair, and you can be grounded. And so you'll get the Earthing Universal Mat, the Earthing book, which you must read and share with others, and the Outlook Checker, so you can check that you're grounded. The total value of this is $85.90, and for all of you, it's $49, which is a savings of over 57%. This is really a great opportunity to have the universal mat. And then the other thing I asked them to provide for us was an opportunity to have the king bed mattress, the sheet. So this gives you the one for the king, a size bed. You can use it on any bed. So you will have the King's bed pad, the Earthing Universal mat, the Earthing book, the Earthing ground rod for those of you who really need to check that you are grounded. If you're, it gives you a chance to really check, as well as the outlet checker. Sometimes you can check and the outlet checker does the job, but the ground rod allows you to really check that you are earthed. So for some of you, that may be something that may be part of the issue. This package is $281.85, but for our listeners, it's $169, which is a savings of over 59%. I really want to thank your team, Clint, for being so helpful, and to Dr. Sinatra for creating this opportunity for our listeners. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you for having us. This is great.
Great. Thank
Thank you also.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Clint, I'm going to give you a buzz.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. So,
thanks, Adelaide.
Thank you.
Okay.
So for
Bye-bye.
the rest of you listeners, again, the fact sheet is wellnessrevolutionsummit.com/earthing-faq.html. It will be in the recap email. You can check out the opportunity to get the Universal Map, the mini kit, and the maxi kit. We've tried to give something so that it works for whatever your budget is and can get you earthed. That's at wellnessrevolutionsummit.com/earthing. We want you to have this information, so go to the fact sheet and really learn as much as you can about this, and please share the opportunity with others. Share this information. This is really important. We will have a call with Martin Zucker to answer any specific questions of the people who are interested in purchasing or have purchased, and I know once you purchase you have questions. So that is something that we will be arranging very shortly. The offer is open only till Tuesday, November 30th, because we want to give those of you who want this before Christmas to have an opportunity to have it. So you'll have the rest of the week to listen to the call, to check out the materials, and it's open until Tuesday, November 30th. So tomorrow our call is with Brent Phillips. His topic will be Intuitive Anatomy, What Your Body is Telling You. He is a certified master of theta healing and the author of Where Science Meets Spirit, The Formula for Miracles and Spiritual Weight Loss. He was a successful MIT-trained engineer who experienced a miracle change when his arm healed in an instant after a single session of the holistic technique theta healing. His arm had been immobilized and frozen at the elbow after a surgery, and he had tried everything to get healed. And so it really transformed his life, and he dedicated all of his science and his engineering talent to master instant healing and personal holistic transformation. So he will be with us. Finally, Janice, congratulations. You are the blogger of the week. We will be sending you an email with a choice of gifts you can choose from. So we thank you so much for blogging, and we will post your blog in the recap email. And to all of you, I look forward to speaking with you tomorrow with Brent Phillips. Thank you very much for listening today, and please share the information about earthing and get yourself grounded. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the evening, and look forward to speaking to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.